Welcome to Oregon Indie Film, a video podcast that shines the light on Oregon's independent film industry. I'm your host, Dawn Sellers. I interview Oregon's independent filmmakers who offer insights into the creative process, challenges, and triumphs of making movies in Oregon. This interview is one in a series of conversations this summer with filmmakers whose work will be screening at the Portland Festival of Cinema, Animation, and Technology. At the age of 57, Rob Garrett quit his swanky job and enrolled in the character animation program at Animation Mentor to learn how to bring polygons to life. Now in his 60s, Rob is on a mission to learn, create, and grow for as long as he can. His first animated film, Sweet Enough to Eat, has been selected to screen at the Portland Festival of Cinema, Animation, and Technology. Rob joined me from his home in Bend, Oregon, to chat about his film, his animation career, and how it feels to have his first film premiering at PFCAT. I hope you enjoy this episode of Oregon Indie Film. Welcome to Oregon Indie Film. I'm here today with Rob Garrett, who will be screening his animated film, Sweet Enough to Eat, at the Portland Festival of Cinema, Animation, and Technology, screening in the comedy block, I think it is, on Sunday, August 23rd at 2 p.m. So welcome, Rob. How are you today?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah. So your film, Every Cupcake is Born Knowing Their Purpose in Life, look amazing, bring joy, and get eaten. I love that. It's great. But we could just start off by having you kind of tell us who you are and what you do in general.
Well, I started my career many years ago as a graphic designer and slowly moved into animation, logos, and graphic animation. And at the time, this was in the 90s when I started doing design and animation, and a little movie called Toy Story came out, and I fell in love with it like a lot of folks did. I always wanted to do character animation, but I kind of got stuck in a good way in the advertising world for entertainment in Los Angeles. I was living in LA at the time, and the entertainment advertising world is a great place for, at the time, what we were calling freelancers. Again, when I quit my job at the time to go freelance, my dad just said, well, that sounds just like being unemployed. And I was like, the whole idea of being self-employed really was kind of new at the time. And so, long story short, I filtered my way through the online entertainment world, the entertainment advertising world, doing motion design and graphic design. And then I started doing video editing, editing promos, editing TV shows. And then I started teaching that stuff and was teaching at a university in Southern California called the Art Center College of Design, which is in Pasadena, and also teaching online. And that got me a job at a company called lynda.com, which was an online education company. And then they asked me to after doing a few courses for them, I got the opportunity to become a content manager for them, designing the curriculum, recruiting subject matter experts, and that sort of thing. And got swept up into the glamorous world of online education, which is really just meetings, email, and spreadsheets. And I spent about almost 12 years there and really kind of lost sight of who I was as a creative person because of the meetings, email, and spreadsheets. And it was a great job with a lot of amazing people, but it was making me miserable. And so in 2022, I quit my swanky job and floundered around for a few months until I remembered that I started creating again during that time. And then part of that creation process, I remembered, oh yeah, that's right, I've always wanted to become a character animator. So I went back to school to learn character animation. And so I went to an online school called Animation Mentor. which strangely enough, I had been on the email list for when they launched back in 2005, and I'd gotten the email while I was teaching a class up at Art Center, and I remember seeing that email going, oh man, I really want to do that, and I couldn't do it because I had a new baby and I had bills to pay, and I couldn't just stop what I was doing. And anyway, I went back to school and started it at square one. I was like, pretend that I don't know anything about animation and start over again, and really kind of rebuilt my entire psychology around animation to create things and bring them to life. And it was a really remarkable experience to start over again. I feel so fortunate to have been able to do that. Again, another long story short, while I was in school, it's 6 terms, so it took me about 18 months to finish that program. While I was there, I was like thinking about, okay, so when you get done with this, what are you going to do? The normal I guess, flow for students at animation schools is to push them towards trying to get a job at some studio somewhere. I didn't really want to do that. I'd already done the whole work thing. I don't know if anybody's going to hire a 60-year-old junior animator. they're not hiring 20-year-old junior animators right now, and so being a 60-year-old junior animator is even weirder. But again, I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to do what I always wanted to do and make my own project. And so I had a bunch of ideas that I'd banked and pulled out a few and started thinking about them, and began working on the script for this project while I was still in school. And then during my last term, I started working on the geometry for the characters, designing what they were going to look like. And then when I finished Animation Mentor in June of last year of 2025, I just went all in on making this project and literally just cranked straight through until May 15th. The Portland Festival of Cinema, Animation, and Technology, along with the Bend Film Festival, were my two creative lines in the sand that I wanted to. I was like, okay, I need to hit the submission deadline for those two festivals. They're right here in my state, in my backyard. I got to hit that. And so all of my work was kind of geared towards hitting those two deadlines. And knock on wood, I finished just in time, like maybe just a few days before the submission deadline for Bend Film Festival. And then Portland's was right after that. And so I'm really grateful to them for, acknowledging the work that I put in, and it was a lot of fun to get there. So sorry, that was the long-winded way of saying I'm Rob and I like to make things. I should have just said that.
Oh, I have so many questions now, though, after all of that. So you sort of went into learning animation with a different mindset than I think most people do, because you'd already had a career, you knew you wanted to freelance, and so you weren't really chasing that internship or that corporate job in animation. You knew that you wanted to make your own things. So I love that. Was it challenging to kind of learn something new in your 50s?
It was. There's a lot of weird things about that, both on the mental side, and also I think something I didn't realize was on the physical side as well. On the mental side, I had to really step back from, I have literally decades of experience animating.
Yeah.
But it was all a different type of animation. So I understand a lot of the animation principles, but not all of them. And so I had to really step back mentally from all of the previous experience I have and just shut my mouth and listen, which if anybody out there who knows Rob Garrett knows that it's hard for him to do that. So that was on the mental side was the hardest thing to do. On the physical side, I spent 10 years or almost 12 years, in the corporate world doing meetings, email, and spreadsheets. But I hadn't, when I started the process, I really hadn't been sitting in the seat, clocked in the way you are when you're creating in a very long time. And my body's changed a lot. When I stopped when I went into the corporate job, I think I was 45 or so, and now I'm 60. And your body changes a lot in that time frame.
Yeah.
And, like, for example, I have a tremor in my hand now that I didn't have when I was in my 40s. And sometimes it makes it really hard to hit small buttons on interfaces. And so you have to adjust your mouth speed, and there's all kinds of little things like that. And I get hip pain now when I sit for too long. Like,
right, that's what I was going to say. That's what I experienced. Like, I can't sit for very long at this age. We're about the same age, and yeah, there's some challenges, physical challenges with that.
They don't put that in the manual when you
no.
start out.
But so you also made a move during that time because you live in Bend. You live here in Oregon in Bend. So
Yes.
When did you move to Bend? Was it during the pandemic then, or?
No, we escaped Los Angeles in 2015. So this is actually our 11th year now in Bend. It's been wonderful. I had always, I kind of, my wife and I kind of got stuck in Los Angeles. I call it getting stuck, but it's just the gravity of life, basically.
Right.
I graduated from school at UC Riverside, which is a city east of Los Angeles out in the desert.
Yeah.
And I came into my folks were still in LA, and my wife came out she graduated from the University of Kansas, and then we moved in together right after graduation. And then again, the gravity of life takes over, and you kind of find yourself, it's funny, the Talking Head song is, my God, how did I get here? Like, it's,
right.
it is,
you wake up and
literally
realize.
that, like, it's crazy. That song came out when I was in high school, and it is still so appropriate today. And that's basically what happened to me in Los Angeles. We never really wanted to live there. And the opportunity with the job that was one of the taking a new job like that when I did with lynda.com was both a big career switch, but it also opened up a lot of opportunity for me. One of which was it was a purely remote job, and they didn't care where I lived. And so I just asked my boss one day, "Hey, would you care where we moved?" And he was like, "I don't care." He was living in Seattle at the time, and his boss was in New York, and so it didn't really matter. So again, another long story short, I had been in Portland for a big bike trip that I took with some friends, and fell in love with the whole Northwest, and came up to look at houses in Portland, and to sweeten the deal for my wife and son, who weren't too keen on the idea of moving to Portland at the time, I was like, "Hey, the trip was in January. We'll go over the hill to this little place I found called Mount Bachelor, and we'll do some skiing."
Oh, yeah.
And we came over here to Bachelor, and my son was like, he was 12 at the time. I was like, "Why the hell don't we just live here?"
Smart kid.
I said, "Hey, watch your language and let me think about it." And again, we moved here. So we did make a big life change, and it's those life changes are kind of at the heart of when I started writing the script for the Cupcake project. I've started really 2020 was a big year for a lot of reasons, right? There was the pandemic and George Floyd, and political nonsense, and really there was a lot going on. Mm-hmm. And that was my first time. And on top of all of that, I was absolutely miserable in my job. I was making a ton of money for what everyone assumed was an amazing company, and most folks would kill to have that position, and I was just miserable, and I was becoming increasingly more unpleasant to be around. And so I started seeing a therapist for the first time, and that it's ironic that all of that angst and trauma, and with a little t, because I'm very fortunate to not have any big T trauma, but all of that work that I'd done with my therapist was kind of all added up to the idea for the Cupcake project, which was to talk about the concepts of mindfulness and being aware of who you are in a funny way. I actually have like a database of like maybe 20 or 30 ideas for episodes of this that are all centered around the ideas of just getting in touch with who you are inside. And I asked the question, like, what, we don't really know who we are inside. What if you were born that way and you still couldn't figure it out? And that was kind of how the whole thing came about. And it's looking back at all of that work that I did. It was really it's funny. You never know how any of that stuff is going to influence you as you go through it. But it was really important in a lot of ways.
Today I'm chatting with one of the filmmakers you'll meet at the Portland Festival of Cinema, Animation, and Technology, also known as PFCAT, happening August 18th through the 23rd at OMSI. At PFCAT, you'll experience 170 indie films from 30 countries, filmmaker Q&As, educational panels, and networking events. It's 6 days of events that brings our local community together through visionary film and animation. There's a free Creator Expo on Saturday, August 22nd you won't want to miss. Find the full schedule and tickets at pdxfestofcinema.com. This link will be included in this episode's show notes. Hey there. If you're enjoying this episode of Oregon Indie Film, don't go anywhere. We've got more great conversation coming up. And if you believe in uplifting local voices and the power of independent storytelling, we'd love your support. Hit that follow button, share the show with a friend, or leave us a quick 5-star review. It makes a big difference. Want to get more involved? Reach out at OregonIndieFilm@gmail.com. Now, back to the episode. Yeah, it was a tough time for a lot of people for sure, and still is. But yay for making art out of it. I mean, that's really what we do, right? As artists and creators, that's how we deal with difficult situations, is we create art. That's what we do. So where do you call home then? Are you calling Bend home now, or you're originally from California?
No, my dad was in the military, so we moved all over the place. I went to 3 elementary schools, a junior high school in Europe, in Germany, and 3 high schools and 2 colleges. So, I lived in LA for 29 years when we moved. Yeah. You could call LA home, and I still have a lot of family there. Yeah. But I'm very much of the mindset is that home is where your stuff is, and so Bend is just a wonderful place, and we feel very fortunate to live here, and I have a really amazing community of friends that I've developed, and my family is doing very well, knock on wood, and so I think we definitely call Bend home.
Yeah, well, there's a great community of filmmakers in Bend too. They've developed a great community. So let's talk about the cupcake. Such a sweet film for sure. So your inspiration was really like figuring out who you are, trying to figure out who you are. I did notice as I was looking through your website that a lot of your projects are about the subject of food. Yeah. So why is that? Do you have a reason for that, or does it just happen to be that way?
The camera from the waist up is very flattering. So food actually has always been a really important part of my life. I love to eat, but also I have a friend here in town, Jonathan Sunday, who's a wonderful illustrator. He goes by the online name of Jolly Good Gang, and he creates just these hilarious, cute illustrated versions of food as part of his work. And when I left my job in 2022, I had bought a couple of his pieces that I have hanging on the wall in the kitchen, and I was like, hey, would you care if, like, there's this one amazing piece of this sushi with his, like, blocking these chopsticks with his aura kind of thing, like Neo from the Matrix, and I said, okay, I'd been looking at that picture for that illustration for quite a few years, and I was like, hey, would you mind if I brought that to life? And he was like, oh no, that'd be awesome. And so that was kind of my first foray into actually bringing something, an actual character to life when I left my job. And that was really a big part of me realizing just how much I wanted to do character animation, and also why the food. So I did the sushi piece first, and then there's another cupcake piece on my website. That is another cupcake of Jonathan Sunday's. And then when I started thinking about my own script, I was like, there's something there about being made out of sugar and then being sweet. And, sugar has all these, detrimental effects on our psychology and our physiology. It's like, what would it be like to be made of sugar? And I kind of went down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And then during that process, I was like, I really love John Jolly's work. The challenge with the faces that he draws on his characters, where they weren't quite as big and expressive. I really wanted to make something kind of over the top expressive in a character, and so I redesigned the face on that cupcake and also gave it proper arms. If you look at my website, you'll see that cupcake, the Sunday cupcake, has these. It's very wonderfully stylized arms and like almost mitten hands and things, and which is his own fun challenge. But I just wanted to do something a little bit different with my character, so I redesigned the face and the arms and legs and proceeded to make that geometry. One of the things that was really, I think, probably the biggest challenge in the process was one of software for me. Just like in the live action film world, like the camera you use has a big impact on the methodology of production.
Right.
And the software that you use in the animation world has a big impact on the methodology of production. And so the narrative film industry is built around a piece of software called Maya, which is from Autodesk. And that's what I was using. I spent my whole career in another piece of software called Cinema 4D, and I was like, I'm never going to learn Maya. Screw that program. And then, sure enough, I go to animation school and I need to learn Maya. And so I spent, the first few weeks of my time at Animation Mentor diving deep in Maya and learning how to operate in that. And I really come to realize I hated it. I made it all the way through school. I created some wonderful pieces during my time at Animation Mentor, but I really knew that I didn't want to stay in Maya when I got out. And so Cinema 4D, my normal application, is an amazing tool for doing graphic animations and that sort of thing. And you can do character animation in it, but it's not really a character tool. And so I said, okay, I'm going to try Blender. There was a really wonderful show that's on Netflix from Jorge Gutierrez called Maya and the Three, which had come out around while I was still in school. It's a hilarious show about a young woman coming of age and trying to find herself. Turns out she's a latent goddess, and they have to save her people. And it's a really funny, epic hero's journey sort of show. But it was all done in Blender, and it's just beautifully animated. And I was like, I wonder what it'd be like to try this in Blender. Yeah. And so I just said, you know what? I'm not going to use Maya anymore. I'm going to switch over to Blender. And literally in June of last year, I had only maybe touched Blender once or twice. And I was went all in. I spent the first month or so just going, okay, where the hell are all the buttons in here? And if anybody's ever used Blender out there, it's a very, very different mindset than the other applications. And even the way you navigate in Blender is different than the other applications. And so I had to all this muscle memory that I had to forget all over again to start using Blender. And it was kind of liberating also, because it forced me to, just like going back to school did, it forced me to forget a lot of my preconceived notions about how I should do things and relearn how to do them in this new piece of software. And it took me a while to get ramped up to speed. I spent most of last summer, duking it out with the software, trying to figure out how to get stuff done. And then slowly but surely was building up momentum just from a learning standpoint, and figuring out how to do things and how to build the characters and all the controls that go along with it, because I was literally doing every single part of the process myself. And so it was very fun and exhausting and exciting and terrible and wonderful. It was all the things to get to the point where I could finally, start actually animating. So I recorded the voices in, I think it was November of last year, and then started building the animatic. So typically an animation production would do, you write the script. Script is the most important thing. It's the place where most folks get things wrong, right? And it's also the cheapest place to solve problems. And yet Hollywood. Sorry, I'm done. But so I had written the script and made a bunch of changes. I recorded the voices for it in November, and then built the animatic in November, and then started animating, like really in earnest. I built the animatic in November and in most of December, and then in the first week of January, it was like, boom, time to start animating and just hit the ground running and burn through all. It was like 7,000 plus frames of animation when it was all said and done. And I built the animatic in one project file, basically. That was one of the things that was wonderful about the Blender process, which I couldn't have done it in any other 3D piece of software, was I built the animatic inside of the 3D software in one contiguous edit, which allowed me to make changes and adjust and shift things around without having to render anything out and go jumping back and forth between editing softwares. I had my voice, I would edit the voices together, bring that in as an audio track in Blender, and then in camera, I had the character rigs there and would block in the animatic and block in the camera angles and then adjust the timing on the shots, all inside of one gigantic project file.
Wow.
And then once I had the animatic where I wanted it, and had, I'd sent it to some friends to have them review it, and I was comfortable with where it was, and then I would, when I started animating proper, I started breaking it into individual shots, and so that made it really easy. Having one big project file made it really easy to start breaking the shots up and having individual project files for each shot, and then I think it was 68 shots or something like that, I think, when it was all said and done. But it was a lot of it was a lot of stuff to take in all at once. To both learning the production process for creating a narrative animation, as well as learning a new piece of software. It was I feel fortunate to have gotten to the finish line with something that mostly doesn't suck.
Right. For your first project using that software, that's kind of amazing. But you had a lot of skills before, so it isn't like you were just jumping in. But so are you a Blender user now? It sounds like you've learned all about it. And is that the software that you'll probably use ongoing?
Yeah, I will stick with it. I have friends that are calling me a heretic now, and because I've jumped ship, and and they're calling me Blender bro behind my back and stuff like that. But it's really kind of an amazing tool, and it's got it's very again, if you've ever used another piece of 3D software and you try to switch to Blender, it's a really weird, quirky sort of application, and that is both good and bad. It comes with some amazing upsides in the way that it approaches things, and it's got some amazing downsides to it as well. It's mostly been awesome for the production process, and so sorry, that was another long-winded way of saying I think I'm all in on Blender. I'm actually already started working on another project, and I'm sculpting the character geometry right now in a piece of software called Nomad Sculpt on the iPad, and then I'll transfer that geometry into Blender once I'm done actually building the characters. And I've got the script written, and I'm waiting on feedback for that. And so it's kind of all working in parallel to try and get to another project idea.
Yeah, I mean, you're really a one-person show. I mean, you're writing the script, you're creating the characters, you're doing the animation, recording the voices, everything. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. So, and this was your first solo animation project then, Sweet Enough to Eat.
It really is. leading up to that point, I had in my time at Animation Mentor, I tried to treat so the way the online school works is that it's 6 terms, 6 classes, and they progress in intensity throughout that process. And you start off with a bouncing ball and understanding the animation principles and really kind of diving deep on that, and then you don't even get to you start posing a character. You don't even make the character move. You just create nice poses for the character without even any animation in the first term. And then you don't actually do anything intense until the second term. So I said weeks of just like learning how to understand the character controls and that sort of thing. But what I did was when I started to do my projects for each class, I treated them like a mini short film, and so I would write no matter how short the shot was, I would still write a script, and I would still sketch out an animatic, and I would still block in the shot. I went through all the same steps that you would do on a big project. I just did them at a very much smaller scale. So by the time I got to the end of my time at Animation Mentor, I had already done call it 7 or 8 little. Even though they might only be 10 seconds long, I treated them like short films, and so I'd done 10 little projects leading up to that point before I did that. Now then I just took that thought process and just expanded it out.
Yeah. Well, how does it feel having this first project accepted? Now were you accepted to Bend also? Did you screen it?
Don't know yet.
You don't know yet. Okay.
Their announcement window is at the end of August, so fingers crossed.
So PFCAT is your first festival then?
It is the world premiere. It's kind of amazing. I'm very excited for it. And I'm coming to town for the festival, so it'll be really exciting.
Yeah, and I know there's probably a filmmaker Q&A after the block with all of the filmmakers, so that'll be exciting.
There's like 6 of us. When I looked at the lineup for the block, and there's a bunch of really fun projects in there, and I think out of the 10 or so, I think 6 people are going to be there, so it's really cool. I get to meet a lot of fun folks, and I have a really good friend of mine who actually got me the job at lynda.com when I worked there. His name's George Maestri, who literally wrote one of the first books on animating in 3D back in the 90s, and he started his own project, the Toast Trip, which is also about food. And he started his project about a year before I started mine, and then we ended up finishing together and submitting to PFCAT.
Oh, nice.
And so now we're both in the same block. Yeah,
I really love that. That's great. That's fun. So, what other projects are you working on? What's next for you?
Well, so I actually one of the things about having done the whole email and spreadsheet thing was I actually have a database of project ideas that I created. I've got a lot of project management skills and that I've developed over the years, and so I'm very meticulous about figuring out how I'm gonna do things, and which is helps. Sometimes it hinders, but mostly it helps. But I have, I started looking back, and I actually have a project idea that I've always wanted to do that I started with a friend many years ago. We wrote this entire backstory and world and created all. I wrote, it was kind of one of the things I was doing for therapy while I was still miserable in my job at LinkedIn. Lynda.com got bought by LinkedIn, and I was working for this massive corporation now and just slowly dying on the inside. And so part of my coping process was to write in the evenings and weekends, and I wrote articles that I published on LinkedIn, but I was also writing these scripts for this show. It's called The Henchman. It's about musical wizards, and it's set in sort of at the time we wrote it, it was set in the present day, during the time of Prince's death, Prince the musical artist. It's the next thing I'm doing is sort of the cold open for that show, which are the 2 main characters battling and about the death of another musical artist. And so I've been putting it, it's one of those things I've always wanted to do, and I really didn't understand how to do it. And going through the process for Sweet Enough to Eat really gave me the confidence to try and and create this thing that I've always wanted to do and bring it to life. So it's a much more ambitious project. It's got human characters, four characters total in the scene, and it's about 7 minutes ish long. But it's also got action and magical effects and destruction of objects in the scene and all of these other huge technical challenges. And so it's very intimidating. But like I say, having gone through the process now for a much more simple project has given me the confidence to try and tackle this. So right now I've written the script and I'm working on the character geometry and slowly but surely inching my way forward. I'm at the part of the project where you're like, you kind of realize how far you have to go and you're like, oh, shit.
Do I really want to do this? Yeah. What have I done to myself? So you mentioned music. Do you write the music also? Are you?
No, I started out as a music major. I play the drums and very bad at guitar and bass guitar and. But I'm very fortunate to have a lot of friends that I've had over my life and career. One of my good friends from high school is actually a multi-Emmy award-winning composer for animation, and
nice.
I reached out to him. I was like, "Hey, man, I've got this animation," and he was like, "Send it to me. I'm in." And so my friend Carl Johnson did the music for "Sweet Enough to Eat," and it really is. It's funny. I spent the whole time animating and editing and building the whole thing, and didn't give him the anything to work on until it got to a certain point of the process. Basically, I had probably 60% of the animation done, and all the shots were like truly locked. And then he sent me back a draft of it, and it just like exploded all these ideas in my head. It was really amazing to hear it, to go from having no music the whole time, the whole way through. The only part that had music is the section where the cupcake is dancing at the beginning. I actually used James Brown as the basis for the dancing sequence, and that was the only spot where I had any music. And then when I got all the incidental music in there, I was like, oh my gosh, it really came to life in a beautiful way. So I'm very grateful to him for doing that work.
So did you make some changes then after you got that music?
Not to shot length, but within the shots.
Within the shots,
I started to change things because the music timing really ended up driving some fun things in the animation timing. And so I'd said, hey man, Carl, I just watched this shot and I want to adjust this so we can hit a very specific beat. And especially like there's a shot where he without giving anything away for folks who haven't seen it yet, there's a sequence where there's a big emotional moment in the piece, and that was one of the spots where I was like, okay, I really want to hit a very specific beat for the music, and I had to go back and work with him to retime everything and just get it to line up perfectly. It's kind of remarkable. I knew what a genius he was at composing. I didn't understand how little he normally has to work with when he's composing for stuff. And he's like, dude, you gave me so much to work with. It was much easier. But they time things out and can adjust, time signatures and tempos and all these things that flow through the music that become seamless in the end. They just adjust that as they work, and they can work with shot changes and edit changes and all these things that are just, they normally get thrown at them. And it's just remarkable to see that process in real time working with him on this. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it sounds like it was a great collaboration that worked out really well.
Yeah.
Well, I always like to ask this question of all my guests, and I'm excited to hear what your big, beautiful dream is. If you could do anything, time and money, not an object, what is your big, beautiful dream for yourself? It doesn't have to be film related. It can be, but what would you do?
That is it's multifaceted. I'm very fortunate to be kind of is the term polymath? I guess I do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I love riding my bike. I would love to go on more bike trips, but I also love animating. I love learning the guitar and sucking at it. Have all these things that I love to do. And so, if money and time were an options, I would actually double down on all those things.
Yeah, I love it. So you're already doing what you would love to do. You just do more of it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have a big project, like something in the future, a big film or project that you would create that you can share?
Well, this piece about the musical wizards is that big project. So,
Nice.
in a dream world, I would probably like this cold open that I'm creating for that is about 7 minutes, but really it's a teaser for. I've actually written 8 full-length episodes of this show so far, and it's we have multiple seasons mapped out of the show, and it would be amazing to be able to make that without having to sell the rights away to get it done. So that would be that's like a creative dream for me. And so part of this process of me making this cold open is like at least giving something to that dream, and maybe it might become the basis for like an Indiegogo campaign or something like that I can use to create with. So, step one is get this thing done. So I'm going to I try not to look too far into the future. Things get misty.
Yeah. Lose track of the day-to-day tasks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, great. Is there anything else you want to share or talk about your work or yourself?
No, my website is bendingpixels.com. And,
that was my next question is where we can find you online. So I'll put all that in the show notes. So
I appreciate that.
Go ahead. And, so Bending Pixels is your website.
Yeah, I do actually have a screener up there of the movie. I haven't put it on YouTube yet because of the whole film festival process. I'm hoping that festivals won't become alarmed that I have it on my website. Almost nobody goes there, so it's probably fine. But I'm going to be slowly putting behind the scenes stuff up there. I have a few behind the scenes clips of the process of making the Sweet Enough to Eat, and I have lots more stuff that I'm want to get to putting up there, and you can find me there. And I'm sort of on social media. It's hard to these days with a lot of the silliness going on, but Bending Pixels is my handle on all of the social places.
Oh, okay.
I actually have them all set up there already, and you can find me just about any place. I'm very active on LinkedIn as well.
Oh, okay. So LinkedIn, is that also under Bending Pixels or?
Rob Garrett is LinkedIn.com/Rob Garrett. Is where you can find me. So it's kind of when I worked there, I went through the trouble of really getting my profile nailed down. That's one of the things they ask you to do off the bat.
So you can't give up that now. You put too much work into it.
Yeah.
No, I think LinkedIn's been pretty good lately. I mean, I don't know. Most people are on there, I think, these days.
I'm very fortunate. The creative community is actually very strong on LinkedIn, and I've done a really active job of tailoring my feed so that I mostly only see creative posts from animators and about animation, and it's really become my go-to place because I don't get any business twaddle, and I don't get a lot of political nonsense on there.
Yeah.
So it's really fantastic.
Well, good. Well, thanks so much for taking the time today, Rob. And people should, even if they can see Sweet Enough to Eat on your website, they should still buy tickets for the Portland Festival of Cinema, Animation, and Technology. And I'll put that link in the show notes as well. I'll probably see you there.
Fantastic. I look forward to meeting you in person.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thank you again.
Thanks so much for listening. Be sure to get your tickets to see Sweet Enough to Eat and other films screening in the Adventures in Becoming block on Sunday, August 23rd at 2:00 p.m. You can also get the full festival pass to fully enjoy the experience. Visit the website, pdxfestofcinema.com. If you want to continue the conversation with Rob Garrett, you can reach out to him on his website, social media, or attend the festival Q&A after the film screening. You'll find all of those links in the show notes. Be sure to subscribe and listen to this podcast for other interviews with filmmakers whose films have been selected to screen at this summer's PFCAT. I have some talented guests to interview. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to share it with your friends. We'd love it if you could leave a 5-star review. Help us connect with more indie film lovers. Would you like to support the podcast by becoming a guest or a sponsor? Reach out at OregonIndieFilm@gmail.com.